This is VSiN, the sports betting network. This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Huge horse racing weekend upon us, ladies and gentlemen, and First Bet is the official horse racing partner of VSiN. They are bringing us an exclusive offer this week to bet the Breeders' Cup World Championships. Use your promo code VSiNBC, that's VSINBC. You'll be entered to win a VIP Vegas experience when you deposit and bet $200. Plus, when you deposit and bet just $100, you'll get a one-year VSiN Pro full subscription for access to everything we do, the exclusive content picks, and more. Bet the Breeders' Cup with First Bet, the official racing partner of VSiN. Again, that promo code VSiNBC at first.com/VSiN. That's the number one, st.com/VSiN. And I, for one, am pumped for the Breeders' Cup coming up at Del Mar. And I feel like far too often, by the way, these big races that we have, there's weather implications. In San Diego, it's like always sunny and 70. I'm excited that for a big weekend like this, we're not going to have weather issues. So a good weekend for the horses and the patrons upon us. And to get a breakdown for everything coming up at Del Mar, Bailey Armour joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line, marketing manager over at First Bet. You can follow her on X as well at _BetBailey. And let's start with the Breeders' Cup Classic here, because one big news item that has come is that Sovereignty, and it's like, even if you don't know much about horse racing, you know the name Sovereignty, the Kentucky Derby, the Belmont, is going to be scratched for this one with an illness. What can you tell us about what happened there and how the field looks now without that horse in the running?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sovereignty has been one of my favorite horses in training this year. And thank you guys so much for having me, by the way. This is kind of my favorite thing to talk about. So Sovereignty, of course, was a huge horse, had an incredible year this year, but unfortunately shipped out to Del Mar. And then yesterday morning, during that breakfast at the Breeders' Cup coverage, we found out via his trainer, Bill Mott, that he had unfortunately come up with a fever. So they have to treat the horse, give him, some medication to make sure he's okay. He's still doing well, feeling well, but of course, out of an abundance of caution, he will not be participating in the Breeders' Cup Classic on Saturday, which really opens up the race and might make it a little bit better, no pun intended, for the bettors out there to find some more value with that big monster horse out of the field.
So when you say it opens up the race in terms of these winners, obviously maybe a little bit more of a chance, but does it change the way this race is run with a horse like that out of it?
Yeah, it'll definitely affect that and allow some of the other closers in the field. So Sovereignty, of course, was a closer. He gets this really strong late kick at the end of the race and then runs by all of the horses that might have been holding onto the lead to just capture it at the end. It's a really thrilling running style. Of course, my personal favorite, but I might be a little bit biased. So I'm going to take a look at another closer in the field now. This is the horse that won this race last year. His name is Sierra Leone, coming into this race off of a win in the Breeders' Cup Classic this year. This is a horse that can kind of be hot and cold sometimes. When he's on, he's really, really on. And when he's off, he's pretty off. But it looks to me like he's really coming on into this race. I think that sets him up with the defection of Sovereignty now. He's a little bit older. He's a little more mature than some of the horses in here, like one of the other closers that we've seen, Journalism, who was the second best 3-year-old that we've seen in the crop this year running in those Triple Crown races. With the new adjusted morning line price, Sovereignty will now be, I believe it's 7-2 in the pari-mutuel world. A little bit different than the way that we say those sports odds, but 7-2 on the morning line pari-mutuel side. So hopefully we can get close to that price on Saturday.
You mentioned Journalism, Fierceness, Baeza. There's a handful of horses that have become more familiar names with some people. Where else might you be looking in this race? Or is there anything fun that bettors could get involved in when it comes to a trifecta or a trifecta box type of an approach for the big race?
Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. I like the way that you think, Stormy. So I'll definitely be playing some exactas and trifectas in this race. And that's really where you can start to find the most value, especially in these big, big pools when it comes to the Breeders' Cup. So that's the really fun thing about them, is that there's so many different variables, so many different horses that those pools kind of tend to inflate. And then you can attack them a little bit differently than you would the other, 333 days of the year, or so to speak. So I'll be playing, like I said, Sierra Leone over the likes of Fierceness and Baeza, along with Journalism as well. So Baeza and Journalism, two of those very impressive 3-year-olds that we've had this year. Fierceness is, of course, incredibly talented East Coast-based horse who really competes at this level quite strongly. I'm a little bit concerned about the rail draw for him, so he'll be on the number 1 post, which is the closest to the inside as they go out of the racetrack there, kind of along to the right. Sometimes he's had a little bit of trouble with that rail draw. I don't think that it's a complete negative factor for him. I wish that he was probably in maybe like the 4 to 5 post, just based on the way that I see things, but I'll be including him in my trifectas and exactas for sure.
So for this, you do kind of move around for the Breeders' Cup, right, in terms of locations. Are there trends that you can actually look at for races like this? Because I know in big races, we do like to look at the post trends, things of that nature, but do you throw those out considering the revolving door of locations?
I think that the way that it changes, weather is, like you mentioned, Stormy, is a big factor in this one. So the nice thing about having it out at Del Mar is you don't have to worry about rain, wind, snow, anything. It's going to be a nice, probably mid-70s sunny day out there. So that definitely can boost some of the turf chances, some of the turf horses that are used to running on that good kind of dry turf versus a wetter turf that we might see for some of the European horses. So you do still tend to get some big price plays in some of the turf races, more so than the dirt races, I would say. But I think the Del Mar track plays a little bit more consistently because the weather is so similar year round.
Bailey Armour, First Bet, joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line, talking all things Breeders' Cup weekend out there at Del Mar. And the 14-race action of the Breeders' Cup kicks off on Friday with the Juvenile Turf Sprint, which, from what I have been reading, is a pretty wide-open affair, a packed starting gate. How are you looking at this one?
Yeah, the Juvenile Turf Sprint is one that I did in our wager guide here at Express Bet and First Bet. I am very, very, very big on Lenny Lou here. Lenny Lou is a very talented filly coming into this race for trainer Patrick Biancone. She's been based out at Gulfstream, and her fractions last out in her most recent race at Gulfstream were lightning fast. I mean, almost faster than any other horse in this race. This is a 5-furlong race, so some of these horses are used to running 5.5, so they'll be cutting back a little bit in distance and need to be quicker. And she is just so dang fast and has been training so well coming into this race. So Lenny Lou will be the key for me here over the number 6, Intricate Spirit, and the number 10, Sci-Fair.
Is there any horse in this race that you would draw the line through, that you would tell somebody, yeah, you don't want to be part of that one?
I mean, that's probably hard to say. I don't ever want to be too negative about anybody's horses or anything. I think that some of the Europeans have some pretty live shots. Maybe some of the outside horses. Now, I keep going back and waffling on Schwarzenegger. That's the number 11 in the Juvenile Turf Sprint. He won at Keeneland and was pretty talked up on his debut. I just don't know that if I'm convinced that he's as good as a lot of people say that he is. I don't think that his speed figures are quite as good as especially some of these European horses that are coming over. And I don't know that he's necessarily like maturing physically in the way that I would be as keen on him as I am on Lenny Lou.
How about the turf, race number 8 on Saturday? Potential to be a fun one. Rebels Romance has won it twice, but is not the favorite. Can you tell our audience who is and whether or not that horse warrants that type of odds? How do you see it?
Yeah, this is another pretty good one. And like I said, those turf races are ones that you typically will see a big upset on. One that a lot of people are pointing towards in the turf here is Minnie Hawk. She's the number 8, trained by Aidan O'Brien, who really knows what he's doing when it comes to bringing these horses over. They all go out in the same set in the mornings during Breeders' Cup week, and they call them Aidan's Army because there are just so many of them, and they're so formidable as they come in a line down this racetrack. So Minnie Hawk, she just ran in the Arc de Triomphe, which is a huge international turf race over there at Longchamp in Paris, and finished second by a head. She was the big favorite coming into that one. That was supposed to be her big performance against this really, really tough field of boys. And she only finished second by a head. So I really, really do like her chances coming over here. She'll have to face off against Rebels Romance, a horse that we've seen, an international horse that we've seen run multiple times over here in the U.S. Of course, he draws the rail and then is another short price. So hopefully we can find some value outside of those two in the turf.
Girl being favored over the boys. There you go.
Yes.
Before we let you go, I am curious, like a lot of our audience, and I know myself even as well, like we delve into the horse racing more for these big major events. If you're doing it for the first time, what do you recommend somebody to play or an approach? Do you just do one race? Do you just want to get involved in everything? What's the best way for a novice horse racing bettor to get involved?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. I feel like if you asked 5 different people, you might have 5 different answers. I think if you are, brand new to the sport, of course you can't go wrong with a win bet. Obviously your horse finishes first and you're going to make some money back, but I like to include some exactas in that. So that's first and second place. And you can do what's called an exacta box. That might be the friendliest, like a little bit step above a beginner where you might know a little bit what you're talking about there. First and second in any order there. So you can kind of start to include some horses and the payouts will increase on top of that. So win and exacta boxes are my tips for the enthusiastic beginner.
You're awesome, Bailey. Thank you so much for lending us some of your time today, and enjoy the races. It's going to be a great weekend.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Good luck to you too.
Bailey doing great stuff over at First Bet, which is a great reminder. And I know we mentioned off the top everything that they have going on at first.com/VSiN and the partnership we have there. But there is also a fun event coming up that we're calling the Breeders' Cup Survivor, where you can put your handicapping talents to the test. It is the inaugural event that we are doing here, where we're pairing the Breeders' Cup with some football. You can pick against the spread in 2 NFL games coming up this weekend. And if you nail a top 3 finisher in 8 select Breeders' Cup races, you can be in the hunt for $10,000 in cash prizes. Entries are due by tomorrow, though. So Thursday, October 30th. Head to first.com/VSiN. Again, that's the number 1 st.com/VSIN to get started. But the Breeders' Cup Survivor is a great option. And again, we told you earlier, if you use our code VSiNBC when you sign up, deposit and bet $200, you can also get a VIP Vegas experience. Wow. There's so much stuff that's going on right now. Enjoy Breeders' Cup weekend. Good luck with your bets there. We're stepping aside here on Money Moves West Coast Bias coming up next in college football.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Which I could not contain my laughter a moment ago in the commercial break as we welcome you back here to Money Moves. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. For anyone who's been with us for the last 20 minutes or so, JVT and I, we were talking through some NBA, some potential props on the national doubleheader today. Right. And then you said, and hey, remind me.
Right before we talked to Kendall Valenzuela, which, by the way, if you want to check that out, go and check out Money Moves wherever you get your podcast. It was a great interview.
Remind me, I have a question to ask you about your other job. That's what you said. And we asked our audience, hey, let's remind JVT because I don't have a good memory. And we got a wonderful tweet from @SBO Picks, said, please don't take Reeves under. He will go over. Like you said, he is the game plan. And also, please ask Storm the question. You then respond, big number. What should I ask?
Totally forgot. Dude.
Totally forgot.
Should I ask my question now? I guess before we get to West Coast Bias, because this is your thing. So in watching a lot of the press conferences pre and post for the World Series, because you help cut sound, do whatever, I've noticed, first off, I've noticed a lot of old rickety voices in the press corps, a lot of old guys covering baseball. But the other is the older guys tend to call the managers Skip or Skipper or, like little things instead of like, hey, Dave. And so I wanted to ask you, as somebody who actually has to talk to these people, what is your go-to when it comes to addressing these coaches? Do you go coach? Do you go, did you use Coach Prime when you talked to Sanders? How do you approach this? Because I thought Skip sounded a little goofy. Like, why are you calling him Skip? He's not your manager.
So it's funny. I think it depends on the situation.
Okay.
When I do a quarter interview, for example, we set those up. So it's like back here in Salt Lake City with 17-0 with Coach Prime. Right, so I do it like that, and and then you like Coach but when it's just a meeting,
when you're addressing them,
it's by their name more often.
Because I think when you're setting up a report, I think it makes sense to context to who they are.
Correct.
But like if you're sitting down with Deion Sanders, do you go like, hey, CP, hey, Coach Prime? Like, I don't know. I find it odd when I met
Deion Sanders for the first time, I did not call him Coach Prime.
Yes, there we go. That was my question. Because I hear these guys call Dave Roberts and John Schneider, hey, Skip. And I'm like, I don't know if you do that.
But I think it's different. It depends on the relationship maybe too. Sure. If like that, sometimes that's how people want to be addressed. And you just follow the norm there. At least they're not calling him coach, because that's weird in baseball. I know baseball managers are very sensitive about the word coach specifically.
As a skipper.
Yes, manager.
That was it. That was all I had. So, when
in
you
hockey,
work,
it's a bench boss.
when you're out in BC taking on, or when you're taking in Notre Dame at Boston College,
Speaking of press conferences, I was listening
Coach
to
Free.
Marcus Freeman's press conference this week, and I really enjoyed a lot of the reporter questions in that media availability. There are some that, they are not all created equal. Let's put it that way, right?
Yes.
You listen to some, you're like,
yeah.
what did he just ask? Or does he realize that he just asked verbatim something that was just answered? That type of thing. But it was a very, very good and interesting press
Vrabel
conference.
got his press corps earlier this year with that. There's somebody asked a repeat question. He was like, "Did you just listen to what she asked?" It was very good.
Sometimes
I never do that.
Sometimes it's funny. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You've never repeated anything that anyone's ever said moments before. Let's get into some of these games, though, as we say. And even though I'm going to be out on the East Coast this week, I love my West Coast teams. I've got a little West Coast bias, as do you. Hence how this segment got created. So looking at the slate for Week 10, where would you like to start?
Oh, let's just start at the top. We've got an somewhat interesting one. Fresno State on the fringes of contention in the Mountain West, and now they get Boise State. The real question for Boise State is they continue to become this power in the Mountain West, which, again, I think it says more about the Mountain West than it does about Boise, but maybe I'm being somewhat unfair to the Broncos, is just... do we dare say, are we maybe getting too high with Boise State in this power rating? Will there be a time where we can go against them? They do have a game coming up against San Diego State, but do not think this is a look ahead because they have a bye coming up first. So I don't think they would be looking ahead to 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. But look, Fresno State was one of the top 4 teams from a odds to win a Mountain West championship standpoint before the season started, depending on where you looked. And they're a somewhat respectable program who maybe can stay inside of 17.5 against Boise State. But I do wonder... that's just the question. How high is too high for this Boise State program as you desperately look for something?
I was looking for my phone because I needed a calculator.
You needed a calculator. As we're speaking about Boise State, Fresno State, you need a calculator.
I'm not good at math.
Okay.
And I was trying to see how many points they lost to Colorado State by, and the answer was 28.
Yes. You couldn't do that math on the fly, huh?
Don't judge me, all right?
So anyway,
why even talk?
Fresno State. So I'm assuming because of everything happening here, what do you do with Fresno State? That is the question.
Yeah, I think 17.5 is obviously a big number. It's at Albertson Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have environment on their side. They just got shut out by SDSU, though, so you would imagine there's going to be an added emphasis to try to change things offensively. This is a stay away game for me because I don't trust Boise State to lay big numbers, but I also...
Are you being... So here's the question. Are we being too... We'll phrase it this way. Fresno State is coming off of some ugly losses and just some outright ugly performances. They got shut out by your team. They got blown out by Fresno State. I am still amazed that you couldn't do the simple math of 49-21.
It's Colorado State, by the way.
Colorado State.
You can't even read, so.
49-21. Either way, the reason why I bring this up is Fresno's offense, its strength by, the statistics, would be its running game. And if you look at it by expected points added, defensively, Boise State is the 128th ranked rush defense in the country. Mm-hmm. Now, the rebuttal would be, how often is this team finding itself in deficits where teams are obviously going to run against them? Thus, maybe there's going to be some noise in the run defense metrics for Boise State. But still, it's a big number for a Boise State team that just needs to win these games. And I guess maybe they're going to ask for style points, considering that this is a potential CFP team. But thought it was worth throwing out there.
I would also say, to be transparent, I was doing that math so that I could do the last 2 games to do an average, and I wanted the number to be right. But
okay.
I still hate you for doing this to me.
What did I do?
What do you think about UNLV?
If only we knew this was coming.
What do you think? You know I had a long morning.
So
Don't you come for me right now.
So did I.
What do you think about UNLV hosting New Mexico this week? 4-point spread.
I want to do it again. I like this New Mexico team, and I think I want to take my shot against UNLV here once more. As we learned in the Boise State game, and we've known this about UNLV. We should be very transparent, is that UNLV is not a good defensive team. Like, every metric screamed it to us, and yet we were waiting to see whether or not they would fall flat on their face at a certain point. It was the Boise State game. Now you get New Mexico. They're a very well-coached team. You look at their offense overall, in terms of the grand scheme of the country, they're actually, for a Mountain West team, pretty solid when you look at what they're going up against here. Specifically, though, fringes of like top 65 rushing offense versus the 136th ranked rushing defense in the country by multiple standards. If you look at UNLV and the inability to contain some of the explosive runs, the explosive plays through the air, they're a little bit better at, but this is just a really bad run defense. And I think New Mexico can run their offense here to keep that going. I like New Mexico a lot. You look at their ability to generate those explosives and do everything they want on the ground. These are two bad defenses, but they can at least, New Mexico, stand up to the run somewhat well. They're also a top 65 rush defense. So I don't know, man. Like, we saw this open at 5.5. We're sitting at 4 right now. I think I'll say this. I think there's probably going to be a closing number of 3.5. So maybe I should just grab the 4 or 4.5 now. And mainly it's just 4. So I think Mexico's live here, though, against UNLV.
Yeah, you've said it a few times. You've been trying to find opportunities to fade UNLV.
And then the one time I backed them against Boise State wasn't even close.
Meanwhile, last week we were both very firm believers in San Diego State. We were correct in that assessment. They end up having a great win against the aforementioned Bulldogs of Fresno State. This week, hosting Wyoming, and it's a big number, and we're over that key number of 10 in this spot as well. But are the Aztecs at this point just kind of hitting their stride?
You're
How
the
do
Aztec.
you view them against Wyoming? I think so. Here's the thing, JVT. Do I think they should win and cover? Absolutely. But this is what I always come back to with SDSU is will they? Yeah. Because there was another game, if you remember, earlier this season where I was adamant about the Aztecs being able to win and cover, and they lost by a large margin.
They're improved. You can't keep holding Washington State against them, only in terms of evaluating the resume. I think the real question is just whether or not this offense is good enough to cover a number like this.
Yeah.
I think the defense is really good. And I think that
Wyoming, has played some close games.
Sure. I think that we're getting to a point now where we're finally starting to see the market catch up with, like, the market had been all over the place with San Diego State. As we remember, you go from the Washington State game to covering a big number and winning outright against Cal to, what was going on in the NIU, like all over the place. So this team has been power rated, but I think we're starting to finally see 3-point, road favorite in a conference game. Now 10.5 at home here at the snap against Wyoming. That I think maybe we're on the fringes of getting to the top of the market, because I just don't know when I look at an offense that's pretty below average in almost every category, would I trust laying 10 in the hook, even against a team like Wyoming.
I know it's college football season, but college basketball is right around the corner as well. We're tipping off next Monday.
Can't wait.
And now's the time to get your annual betting guide. Our guy JVT is a part of this, covering the aforementioned Mountain West Conference. We'll also have Matt Euman's top 50 rankings, every league previewed, Wooden Award candidates, futures, season-long props, plus betting nuggets on every major conference team from Greg Hoops Peterson as well. The only way to get the guide, though, is by being a VSiN Pro subscriber. Sign up now for $120. You get VSiN Pro access to everything we do until May 1st. It's all college hoop season, March Madness, and beyond. Less than $20. Sign up today, vsin.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe. We didn't hit on all the West Coast games I would have liked to, so maybe we can get to a few more of these a little bit later on in the show. But for now, Mark Drumheller of Fantasy Life joining us in studio next on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Well, here on this Wednesday edition of Money Moves, alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you. Very excited to have our next guest in studio with us live here in downtown Las Vegas. Mark Drumheller, analyst over at Fantasy Life, joins us on set here. You can follow him on X at X_Drumheller. So when it was just Twitter, what was your handle then?
It was the same, yeah.
No
so
way.
It actually was the same. And this is a great story. So how it came about was M was taken. And I was going through a bunch of different alternatives of what I can use. And then I just rage hit X. And I was like, I'm going to use X because nobody has X. And then ultimately, the platform changes over to X. So it fits right in.
You should have done the teenage angst, like little X, big X. You know what I mean? On the ends. That would have been the way to do it. All right, so let's talk about this. Let's start with what we were just talking about off the air. My Indianapolis Colts, the best team maybe in the NFL, some are saying. Who knows? Who's to say? What do you make of what they've got coming up this weekend?
Well, I'm from Philadelphia, so I'm not ready to commit the best team in the NFL yet.
Okay.
But, I do like the Colts, and I really like them this weekend. I think it's an incredible spot. And what it comes down to with this game is game script, really. And the Colts are a team, the number one offense in the NFL from an EPA per play perspective when they have the lead. And that's going to be huge. So they're going to be able to get up ahead of Pittsburgh early. And I think Pittsburgh's a team 24th in offensive success rate when they're trailing. So they don't have the firepower to battle back against this Colts team. So I think this is perfectly set up for Jonathan Taylor to get going, for them to get a lead. And what's the biggest weakness of Pittsburgh's defense? They can't cover the tight end, right? Kraft went nuclear, 143 yards or whatnot. And when you look at Daniel Jones, if you give him that tight end, the efficiency just increases more. So I think Tyler Warren's set up to have a big game here. I think the Colts offense is going to have a big game here. And I just don't think Pittsburgh's going to be able to keep pace. The one thing about the Colts, they lead the NFL in margin of victory. And also they lead the NFL in beating the market, plus 10.6 points average against the spread per week. So they're a team that consistently beats the market. Pittsburgh's a team that consistently underperforms. So I like the Colts in this spot a lot.
The Steelers defense has really caught me off guard because this has been the strength year after year after year. And I thought coming into this season, okay, if you bring in Aaron Rodgers and you don't have to ask him to do too much, just don't turn over the football, get the ball out to some of your playmakers, the defense will do the rest. This has been the complete opposite. How surprised are you at Steelers' defensive production so far?
It doesn't seem to fit the Mike Tomlin mold. You think of Mike Tomlin, and he's a defensive coach, and they're going to be a tough, hard-nosed football team on the other side. But I just think it's a combination of injuries and, aging on the other side of the ball. And the NFL is a league where flips on the dime. Like, if you're not with it, you know what I mean, as far as from a roster perspective, the way you build your roster, then, you're going to get caught off guard, and it's hard to battle back. And I think that's what we're seeing. It's like a year of transition for the Steelers defense.
By the way, some quick math. Tyler Warren is only 9 yards away from going over his preseason receiving yards prop.
Yet he didn't want to give us any touchdowns on National Tight End Day.
No, that's very true.
I'm a little bitter.
I mean,
just a little bitter.
Yeah, I'm bitter as well. But then also, Dalton Kincaid played like 18 snaps as well, so we kind of got screwed there. All right, let's go to Thursday night before we get to the World Series. We have an interesting one with the Miami Dolphins taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Dolphins have quietly, even though they haven't won games, they did just last week, they have been covering numbers recently. You think they can stay inside of this one?
I think they can. I mean, we saw them in this exact same spot against the Chargers a few weeks ago. They played pretty solid. But really what it comes down to me is I can't lay 7.5 points in good faith when the Baltimore Ravens have a defense that's 30th against the rush and EPA per play allowed. So that's really the issue. That rush defense is so poor. How do you pull away from teams if a team like Miami is just going to be able to hand it off to A-Chain and methodically go down the field and chew up clock? And there's a couple other different factors, we have in this game. If you look at Miami, how they played last week against Atlanta, stacked the box, shut down Bijan, made Kirk Cousins beat them, right? So I think they're going to do the same thing against Derrick Henry here. Will they have the same amount of success? Probably not, but I'm not positive. Even with Lamar coming back, he could be a little rusty, and I'm not positive that this Ravens team is back. I think a lot of people are looking at them like the win last week was big, but they were even in yards per play. With Chicago, they were outgained in that matchup. Yes, they won by 14 points, but I think it was a little bit deceiving when you peel back the stats.
Backup quarterback in that game on Sunday, and another one we saw was with the Washington Commanders and Marcus Mariota stepping in for Jaden Daniels. The Commanders this week have a Seattle Seahawks team that's been running pretty hot. I mean, even you look at their 2 losses this season, they very easily could have been on the winning side of as well, laying 3 in this spot in Washington. How do you see it?
Yeah, another road favorite I'm taking. But I do like Seattle here. Seattle's a team I was high on going into the season. I didn't expect this out of Sam Darnold, didn't expect this out of JSN, but they're one of the most lethal combinations in the NFL right now. And Washington really can't cover anybody. That Commanders defense, we saw Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice get whatever they wanted, 90-plus yards apiece last week. And I don't think they're going to be able to stop this Seattle offense that is tied for number 1 in the NFL in explosive pass plays, 40-plus yards. They're top 5 in explosive pass plays, 20-plus yards. So that offense is going to get moving. They're going to move the ball against Washington, regardless of who's a quarterback. I like Mike McDonald. I like that defense. I think they're going to be able to bring the heat, and I think that they can cover this number. They haven't lost a road game, I think it's been since September of last year. I mean, they've been one of the best road teams in the NFL, which you think of Seattle and you think of the home field advantage, but it's been the opposite.
All right, well, before we move on, we have to ask you about your Eagles. How are we feeling?
We feel better. Yeah, I mean, there's obviously some kinks to be worked out with the offense and the play calling, but I like that, we got Jalen Carter back, so the defense is looking stronger. And listen, it's tough to repeat. And I think the biggest challenge with the Eagles is last year was such a grind because the way they beat teams, they physically beat them up. And then you have that short off season. You got to get right back at it. Several players have talked about how hard it was to recover this off season just from the physical toll that it took. And then you're trying to play power football again. But we're seeing Jalen Hurts step up. The offensive coordinators starting to figure it out. So that's what I like to see.
What do you feel? What are your feelings about the A.J. Brown of it all right now?
I think it's a little bit overblown. I think A.J. Brown wants to be a big part of the offense. Of course he does. I don't think he's unhappy being with the team, but I think when he sees the offense struggles and he knows what he can do, I mean, listen, nobody can one-on-one with A.J. Brown. He's going to win that matchup every time. So he wants the ball, and he wants to be a big part of the offense. And when he wasn't early in the season, they weren't having success, he was upset. And to be honest, I was a little upset myself.
They're the best team in the NFC?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to end up going back. And, the NFL comes down to health. If they can stay healthy, they have a chance as good as everyone to get there.
All right, World Series rolls on tonight as well in Los Angeles. Anything stand out to you in that one tonight?
Yeah, I like the over. So I think, we're going to see some runs tonight. I think you look at, you Savage. Is he going to be able to respond on the road in such a big matchup? We talk about home field advantage. It's not really about the crowd, but it's about the hitters having familiarity of where the ball comes out of the pitcher's hands. So I think this is a lot asking for him. I think it's a good live spot for bettors. Like if we see Savage have control of the splitter, getting the outs early, I think that's a real good sign for Toronto. And if we see Snell getting ahead of counts with his fastball, pounding the strike zone early, I think that's going to be a great sign for the Dodgers. So I think you can look at it from a live betting perspective that way, like see which pitcher's in control early and kind of play off that. But I do think we do see some runs. Do I like the Dodgers to win? I do. It's 66% implied, probably a little rich.
So if you look at the series as a whole, given what you think, still the Dodgers to win this thing?
I think Dodgers in 7. I was here looking at that plus 525 tag the other day, yesterday, and I was like, wow, that really could end up that way, especially if Toronto bounces back. And we saw them bounce back, but I do think it could be Dodgers in 7.
Do you have any feel on MVP? We were talking about it earlier.
Freddie Freeman,
25-1.
I know.
Potentially.
Not bad. I mean, we'll have to see how these games play out, but that's a really good price. I mean, he's a guy who's consistently stepped up in big spots.
I mean, he's got the walk-off, right? And you would assume that Ohtani's performance yesterday dings him a little bit, right? 0 for 3, doesn't pitch particularly well.
A lot of volatility.
Yeah, so if Freeman comes in and has another big moment late in one of these games to help him win it, I would assume he's shooting right up to the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, and it's going to be like recency bias. Like whoever has the big games and those clinching things, those big moments, right? That's going to get a lot from the voters. So, but yeah, I mean, Freeman, 25-1, good price.
What else do you have coming up on Fantasy Life that our audience should know about?
Yeah, a lot of fun. So Fantasy Life, we have a promotion now where you can get all our utilization tools at Fantasy Life Plus. You can go over there, you get a free subscription. So head over to the website. We have agreement with a sponsor comment. You can go over there, you can get all the tools. Dwayne McFarland has a utilization report that me as a prop bettor has helped me immensely because it kind of, you can see game by game how the utilization starts to shift. And I leverage that in my prop bets every single week.
I like it. You ready for college basketball next week?
Not yet.
Nothing?
I'm not there either.
No, come on.
I just spent the week in Vegas.
Yeah,
you want me ready for college basketball?
Speaking of which, what else do you have on deck before you head out of here? How has your week been here?
It's been great. It's been fantastic. I had a lot of fun. Hit the strip a little bit last night. We stayed here locally the first night. We're going to see where the day goes, tonight. And then we head back. We fly back tomorrow to Philadelphia. I think it's like 40 degrees, so I'm gonna have to have the hoodie on.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little chilly.
But yeah, it's been an amazing time.
I'm headed out to Boston tomorrow, and I was looking at the weather report. I'm we're not in Vegas anymore.
No, we're definitely not. And that's the best part is like you can wake up, and I was explaining to people on the East Coast. The East Coast, it's either hot or not because of the humidity. But here I can wear sweatpants, and then I go right up to the pool. Like it doesn't matter,
so
right?
Good. Well, enjoy the rest of your time here. Travel home safe tomorrow. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
Mark Drumheller, everybody. The picks are on your screen. We'll rehash them again next segment as we close out the day. But we will be right back. More money moves upon us here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This Wednesday edition of the program. Why are you laughing?
I mean, could you come out with any less energy there?
All
Let's
right.
go. Yeah, there we go.
We're wrapping it up. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel.
I want the same guttural scream that you had when George Kittle scored a touchdown on Sunday.
Man, that was, and I was happy, but I was sad.
You were.
It was one of those things where I got all the tight ends wrong. I wanted to bet George Kittle, but then it's a, what have you done for me lately situation where he barely had any touches last week. And so then it was a whole thing. I got
something for you.
It was guttural, though.
Yes, it was a guttural scream.
Good word.
Let's see. Roman checks in at Romo 2020 Extra. Says somebody's got to say it. An afternoon game in Boston doesn't sound like a Stormy college football game.
That is true. The West Coast night games have been the bread and butter. But can we all be happy for me in the sense that this will be the first game all season that I'll be in sunlight?
I mean, that's not true because all of your games started in sunlight. Did they not?
Not all, no.
Oh, okay.
But there have been a couple that started in sunlight, but none of them have even gotten past halftime in sunlight.
Okay, that's fair.
So let me live my dreams here. Although it's going to be a little bit windy, so keep that in mind, by the way, if you are...
Is it cold?
Interested. Yeah, it looks pretty cold.
Yeah, man, you guys were just talking about this when I was taking my trips out to the East Coast for betting across America many, many moons ago. Yeah, that cold's a little different. It's
like 40-something, I think, is what it's going to be. And then the winds... Consistent winds from 12 to 18 miles an hour, wind gusts up to 36.
Yeah.
So a little bit windy for what is a big spread game with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish headed out there to BC. It is weird, though, I'll admit. Like, I've been so much on the West Coast this year. We'll do the random SEC game, but an ACC home game is definitely different. But
maybe they know how much this show has an affinity for the ACC.
I'm really excited about it, though. So not many people know this. But, because of my father, when you're a kid, you grow up rooting for the teams more often than not that your parents do. It's like thrust upon you kind of a thing, like I'm sure you do with Diego. But for me, I learned football through the lens of the 49ers and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish because those were the teams that my dad rooted for. So my dad in particular is, like so above the moon excited that I am doing this game. So it'll be really fun.
I am happy for your father that he is happy.
Thank you. 28.5 point spread, though. So hopefully I get some
hopefully
TV time.
Hopefully Father Buonantony did not watch the Charlotte Hornets last night.
Oh, yeah. You're making him mad. No, it's the Brandon Miller.
I was going to say, Brandon Miller getting hurt sucks. I mean, that's
hopefully
absolutely brutal.
We get back on that one.
They got smoked last night by the Miami Heat.
No, but I just to wrap up that conversation, though, I am very excited for that game. I know it's a big spread game, but Notre Dame has gotten off to some slow starts. So maybe we get things be competitive in the first half from everything that I'm hearing out of BC. These guys are not just hanging it up and going out to dry despite the losing streak. They're still really fighting and still engaged behind the scenes. So we'll see how it plays out. BC again.
There you go. You got a thriller on your hands.
Getting
there,
28.5, total 56.5. Well, come on, man. Give me some excitement here. But with that in mind, because we are a more West Coast centric show, there were a handful of those West Coast bias games we didn't get a chance to hit on yet. And one I'm particularly interested in, and I think quite frankly, a lot of America is where College Game Day is going to be this weekend with Cincinnati at Utah, Salt Lake City night game. It's kind of in my mind, a prove-it game on both sides. Cincinnati's been so good in the Big 12 this year, but look at how many points they're getting against the Utes. Is that something that to you, is the market telling us something?
I mean, it's telling us two things. Obviously, there's a belief in Utah. I would assume Devin Dampier is going to play this week.
That is the feeling that I have.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't want to start anything. I would assume that maybe Devin Dampier is going to be out there this weekend. So maybe that's going to be something we can look forward to.
Although what Bert Ficklin did, and granted it's against a Colorado defense that is not particularly good, most notably against the run, it's bad. But Bert Ficklin was great. And he has a very similar skill set to Devin Dampier, albeit he is a freshman versus somebody who's been much more experienced. Bert Ficklin is very talented and can run the offense very, very efficiently.
Yes. I think my question really is just, you've made a pretty good note with this Utah team when it comes to them, and you've had them a couple of times, you have a pretty good read on them. For their defense, one of the things that has kind of stuck out when you break them down from a statistical standpoint, their rush metrics have not been particularly great. They do have, I think, at times, the eye would say, and some of the numbers would too, that they have a tendency to give up some explosive plays on the ground to opponents. And here comes a Cincinnati team that has one of the better rushing attacks in the country from an efficiency standpoint. And when you're talking about the inability or the weakness being your run defense potentially against a Bearcats team that is catching a big number and maybe trying to just, hey, keep you off the field, elongate drive, shorten the game, I would be tempted by a well-coached team in Cincinnati being able to stay inside, especially like at 9.5, whatever. But if we're going to get that 10.5 for the Bearcats, that would be something I think would be very, very popular. Question is, will you get it? And I don't know. There looks like there is a 10.5 showing at a couple of spots, including ESPN Bet and maybe even BetMGM. They're juiced to the dog side. So you get like a flat 10.5. I think that'd be the side that's worth looking at here for the Bearcats.
DraftKings got up to 10.5 and it went right back down to 10. But just the way that this number has gone up from 7 at open to this, it's been pretty one-way traffic on the Utes, which I did at least find somewhat interesting. Last couple minutes here, let's get to your best bets because there are a couple that you added to the portfolio for tonight and looking ahead to this weekend, albeit on the football side, it's in the NFL. But NBA 10-game slate today, there is a prop that you identified with.
We'll give it a shot. Mobley's gone under his 1.5 3-point makes in each of his last 4 games, Evan Mobley, that is. But he's taking more threes, and with a guy like Merrill out today, I'm going to assume you're going to try to find some of that 3-point production from elsewhere. Maybe that means that Mobley is going to be able to go over here and take a few more. Again, averaging 5.5 3-point attempts per game, and that's not inflated by one game. Like, yes, he took 8 in the opener, went 4 of 8, but he has taken at least 4 and at least 5 in each of the last 2, 4 of the last 3. He's trying to shoot more, and so I think with a team that is looking for something, they're probably going to ask him to shoot a little bit more. They've been asking him to shoot a little bit more. And I think you're going to try to test some of these Boston bigs. Like, they're not that athletic. And so, getting Mobley to engage with them and then pop out to the perimeter and trying to force them to cover some ground, I think you can find some open looks if you're Mobley and get these to go down. So he's gone under this in every game since the opener. We'll give this one more shot at a pretty soft price of -110 for Mobley to go over 1.5 3-point makes. And then we added, or at least going to add one, and this has nothing to do with what we talked about. This is something I added last night, but give me the Colts -3 against Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll roll with this on the road. I get there's probably some hesitancy. I think Will mentioned this at one point on one of the hits here on VSiN, dome team, if you will, playing outdoors. I don't think they're a typical dome team. Their offense runs through their running back, and I think they're going to be able to go up against a Steelers defense, which is, I think you can call at least one of the bottom 10 defenses at this point of the season in the NFL. I think they're going to be able to get this done. So let's go Colts -3. I will say this. If I'm wrong, I think Aaron Rodgers has a big game. Only because the Colts are at their best when they're doing 2 things defensively. They're pressuring quarterbacks and they're getting turnovers. Rodgers is pretty good at taking care of the football. He also gets the ball out quick. And so if you can't get one of those 2 things, there's a pretty good shot the Steelers can stay inside of this number, maybe even win the game outright. And I'd venture a guess. Let's play this back if the Steelers win. If we look at like time to throw and total pressures, be willing to bet both of those numbers are really low for Rodgers.
I know that the Colts are favored in this spot, so it's a different situation than when they were taking on the Chargers as a dog. But we even looked at that line and we were like, what is this?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about this one, where it's almost like it's too obvious that Indy is the right side, that I'm like, I want to do it too. Sure. I haven't added this to the card yet, but I have thought about it a few times. I'm still obviously rooting for the Steelers season win total to get there, and so I would like them to have success as a dog, but I'm not sure I can believe it anymore. And we have a large enough sample size, as you referenced, of the Steelers defense that it's bad. And maybe like what Mark said too, between a combination of injuries and just aging players, this unit, right when I thought they turned a corner, I was immediately proven wrong. So I don't have a lot of positive things to say about the Steelers right now.
I would say to your question of like, hey, it seems too easy. It has been too easy for the Colts, though. They are 6-2 against the spread, and they've covered on average by over 10.5 points per game. So they are making it look just like what you're talking about, that the market has been completely wrong about them.
Brian M. tweeted at us that when I am out at BC this week, I need to do the Eagles Challenge. And apparently
there's no shot you're doing
at Cleveland Circle, the student hangout, this is a
good. Can you do this?
A menu mainstay that's been going on for 30 years. It is a beefy tower stacked with 12 half-pound patties on the burger, 24 strips of bacon, and as many slices of cheese served with 5 pounds of French fries, a drink, and a pickle.
Okay, well, in all seriousness, in these last 45 seconds, what control do you have over some of the stuff you covered? You've got to bring somebody out and get some footage.
This is actually a great idea, and we are going to be there the full day on Friday. I'll have time between. I mean, I'm not going to be able to do this.
You got to try it.
But let's expense $80 to do the Eagles Challenge burger.
All right, I want a
picture. See what we can do. I'm
right.
going to text this to my producer. See if we can make some magic
Look at
happen.
that, Brian. You deserve a shout out on the broadcast.
Making TV content.
That's right.
Let's go. That's a wrap for us today. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll be back tomorrow, same
Hopefully
time,
better.
same place. I'll have a little surprise tomorrow as well. That's a tease. As is this, follow the money.
She's been talking about it for a long time.
Coming up next with Mitch and Polly. Have a great day, everybody.